Salud, amigos.
Welcome, dear friends, crew members of our beloved, polluted, and unique spacecraft, which, since last time we met on this media, has taken another turn about its imaginary axis, and it continues creating events in full development. And once again, we talk about the geopolitical balance headed towards the Far East. China starts quoting their oil production. Whenever they go in China, they go big. And it's the only problem, and it's the inspiration for others. But there's also a very delicate chess move that must be carried out, and sometimes not so delicate when we speak about East-West relationship. And whenever Trump arrived to the White House, the problem was that this person who signed checks and everyone would just answer, "Yes, sir," is now the commander-in-chief and carries out geopolitics and tries to get into fight. But of course, the great powers have their own opinion on these events. Together with all of this, I would like to say that what before used to be the reality that awoke the Chinese giant is now actually developing. I was with them and we spoke about the Kurds. Remember that when we were, well, we've been many times, but when we visited Iraq, we also visited Iran, but for different reasons. And we were with Saddam Hussein, with the Sunnis and the Jihadists and the Kurds. And I have been through this. This has not been told to me. And the Kurds had their own legislation, as they were only a different country, but never against sovereignty. They had their own language, their own media, as well as their own education system. And they lived peacefully, as people lived peacefully in Gaddafi's Libya. And it was less sinister, the plans for changing the Middle East from the United States with the most important lobby and the pro-Israel lobby, which is the most important one of the United States. And when talking about Israel, it becomes worse and worse by the day. But now, let's tackle the Middle East event. And as we found the PEP, and they don't want to forgive this, but they have to bear with this, let us speak about energy and about the great power, the emerging power. I visited China when everyone used to ride bikes. Now they all drive state-of-the-art cars. Crude oil in China skyrockets in its commercial debut. Li Yinxun, president of the Regulation Commission for Valves of China, as well as the secretary of the Municipal Popular Ministry of China, with the electronic dashboard that shows great progress in the transactions. Li Yinxun, director and founder of Cisco Future Research Institute. The launching of crude oil had a good start with the most active contract, SC 1800, reaching 429 yuan per barrel, which is almost 40,700 lots of oil, with yuans adding up to billions. The trade of new contracts add up to 42,000 lots of oil that changed throughout the day, added up to 18.3 billion yuans, more than 90% of transactions carried out by Sierra Charlie 1809. Congratulations for the crude oil launching is what will happen then. And here, Huan Yun states the increase in price means that our reference prices are in line with international prices for crude oil, as well as with the crude negotiated in the Shanghai stock market that have been linked to global contracts already. Crude oil from China started with the right foot, with the main contract over 3% of what expected at the end of the afternoon's meeting, increasing the confidence of the country to make this new to a third reference point for the prices globally, to become a benchmark in the big leagues. The launching of this concludes the culmination of the effort of China of 17 years to create the first benchmark for oil futures in Asia, which is expected to reduce the highest dependency internationally for the benchmarks traditionally in other countries. and will add more weight to the crude oil sold in Asia. Benchmarks are the ones that state the price for oil. Enthusiasm in the first day of a total adding up to 42,000 lots of oil during the day, with 50 new contracts during a collective billing of 18.3 billion yuan. Prime Minister from China working for dialogue, but also prepared for a war if it's needed. This happened in Beijing, where the senator was part of the meeting, and the Prime Minister saluted him, and then they spoke. And Li Keqiang urged the government as well as the Congress of the United States to carry out a positive role as well as constructive for the creation of political basis and public support for the relationship between China and the United States together with China. The spokesperson for the First Affairs Minister of China about the relationship between China and the United States should be based on equality and mutual respect. China commits to comply with the differences and problems via negotiations. Our door for negotiation is always open, but it must be highlighted negotiations are not a requirement for condescendence, but need to be carried out constructively with respect and equality too. The result should benefit them mutually.
双向的，我们希望呢，美方和其他国家也能为
In one word, we offer our market of 1.3 billion Chinese for all types of companies, both for China and abroad with different types of properties. Of course, this should be an opening that should take place both ways, and we expect for the United States and other countries to also create a fair environment for trade and non-discriminatory for foreign and Chinese companies. China in the new era. There will be change. In the statement, in the press conference, talking about the commercial war benefiting no one. It benefits no one. Here we're in Beijing, in the Development Forum of China in Progress. Stephen Schwarzman, President and CEO, states it's not in the best interest of anyone in the long term, and I think there's a lot of opportunities to something that is productive. It's better to have mutual respect to have better results, and there's a lot to do for this option. Under the creation of a new understanding and getting rid of the current status quo in order to reboot everything in a productive fashion.
More rapidly that's done, consistent with prudence, is a good thing for China. And it's a good.
I believe that this is a good result for China, a positive attitude for the opening of different areas. And the faster and most coherent way it's done will mean the best for China as well as for the rest of the world. This is the Forbidden City, which you can see in the back. Well, Schwarzman stated this with China Global Television Network for the China and Beijing Forum. And in the meantime, the European Union states that we must be cautious for the steel precaution measures. We've already heard the decisions made by Trump as well as the consequences. We started talking about steel and aluminum because they are not able to compete as they did before when they were the owners of the market. The trade minister of China that wanted to speak with the EU after the EU spoke about the investigation of imported goods of steel and aluminum. They stated that there was an investigation of steel products based on the restrictions to steel and aluminum from Mr. Trump in the White House. Wang Hejun, chief of the Investigation Office of Commercial Means of the Ministry, stated that China, based on the EU, is making the necessary measures against the last measure of the United States of aluminum steel products, but the adoption of measures for global protection was not conduct the right shows, defying the United States. This investigation will make the commercial disorder even worse, plus the chaos by the tariffs for imports of the United States. This will have a more serious and destructive effect on global trade, as emphasized by Juan. Measures will be taken to defend the interests of Chinese companies. As an important member of the Foreign Trade Organization, the United States is a very important power, just like China. Well, the White House should stop using security as an excuse. It is difficult to understand that a ratio as small could become a threat for the national security of the United States. Legitimacy of other actions taken by the United States or plans it's making about national security will hardly be able to justify themselves. Based on this, the tariffs that the United States threats to impose, both for aluminum and steel, will involve many industries in the Made in China plan for 2025. They're destined to other ends and to compete with all the loyalty required. Japan and the United States now, they're fully in sync. But about what? About denuclearization of North Korea, as stated by the Foreign Affairs Minister of Japan. I believe that the United States and Japan are in sync with this problem of North Korea, and it's important for the international community in whole to keep the highest pressure over North Korea until North Korea decides to take concrete steps for their complete denuclearization, which is irreversible and also verifiable.
Mid-range and short-range steel tariffs last Friday. He made a comment about
a beautiful wooden watch, very beautiful. I fully agree. There are United States forces in Korea as well as in Japan. There's tens of thousands of soldiers as well as their families living there within their range. That's why they will also be concerned about mid and long-range missiles because they're living there with their families. He also stated that Kim Jong-un, maybe it could be him or someone who arrived at Beijing, but we never know if someone could arrive in Tokyo, and we're going to expect to see what happens.
Well, I mean, Kim Jong-un just went.
There's an economic dialogue between Japan and the United States. And Vice President Pence and Prime Minister Aso will dialogue about this trade topic. This was the answer to the question made.
Japan-U.S. economic dialogue between the Vice President Pence and the Deputy Prime Minister Aso. So the economic issue will be handled in that dialogue.
Some of them look for dialogue, some others look for confrontation. We expect for Americans to come back to TPP. This means that the treaties that have been signed should be complied. United States were in full sync with North Korea and agreed that they should abolish their mid- and long-range missiles as well as intercontinental missiles. This is the Chancery Office of China. This is a very important press conference. Many of them take place every day and no one can miss them. Now they talk about the visit of the delegation of North Korea to Beijing. Hua Chunying states the following. Let me answer your question briefly. Right now, I don't know anything about the situation you are speaking about. There's news. Should there be news, we will state them immediately. Now, as a close neighbor of the peninsula, we are glad to see both parties speaking and improving their links, as well as promoting mutual understanding and cooperation. China is also willing to provide support to any effort that could benefit the promotion of the appropriate resolution for denuclearization of the Korean peninsula, which will benefit the protection of peace and stability of the peninsula itself. Chancery of China, this is a picture that always marks transition, either the beginning or closing of the press conference. Egypt commences their second day of voting while Sisi moves towards victory. 3 days of voting. for every citizen to be able to vote. This is a school used as a voting center, people queuing up for their vote, senior citizens waiting to vote, people being checked. This is the voting center, one of the many. There's 3 days of voting. Just imagine how many people and what are the distances in that country. Gamal Solman, who voted, stated today, based on this event, that he wants to send a message for everyone, a message to my family, a message to my colleagues, a message to my students, because I am a teacher. And I want to tell you, let yourself be heard. President Sisi has demonstrating and will continue demonstrating that he is the best person to be in charge of the government of Egypt in its current condition. Here are the voters outside the voting centers. They need to use ink to vote, as a guarantee that this ink will not allow them to vote again after they've done it once already. Ashenhano, one of the many voters, also stated this. There's peace. People want to show their will. And whatever the case may be, they're voting because they love the country and they want for the current president to continue in office for 4 more years. Here we use dark ink. They use red ink in Egypt. This time is different. There's a sense of responsibility now. We are voting because we love our country. We want the president to continue for 4 more years in office because he will improve the country in the next 4 years. And he is the best to do so in that term. The young generations don't like what he's carrying out right now at 100%. But overall, this cannot stop. You cannot stop 100 million people who want to work with the president. And they should be stated only in the urns and carry out your right to vote democratically. You can see how peaceful it is, apparently, at least. That's the queue, an orderly one. 3 days are required to vote throughout the whole of Egypt. And here, special forces who hide their faces. The story behind this is that the schools were closed on the second day of elections of Egypt, and this will add up to the continuity of the current president. We vote because we love our country, and we want the president to continue for 4 more years in office. We'll be able to manage the country during the next 4 years, and this is the best what he can do during the next 4 years. He is the best candidate. Some young generations don't like him. They don't like him 100%, of them don't like him at all. But you cannot have 100 million people saying they want the same president. Of course, there's a niche or a section of the country that will say that they don't like what the president is doing. But overall, he's carried out some very good work, and I think this is going to be reflecting in the votes.
Definitely there would be some section or niche in the country will say we don't like all what the president is doing, but generally he's doing a very good job.
Other voters, as Ahmed El-Maabi, stated after voting for international cameras, we've noticed changes. We've seen the roads, we've seen the bridges, the new Suez Canal, as well as other projects that were carried out that have never happened in the last 30 or 40 years, in order to continue this way and to reach what we want, which is to overcome terrorism. That's why we need to choose Al-Sisi.
فلازم عشان نستكمل المسيرة وعشان نعمل اللي احنا عاوزينه لسه وقدامنا الإرهاب وقدامنا مشاكل كتير لازم نجيب السيسي لازم هو يبقى السيسي
In an effort to bring eagerness to voters, the news agency stated that voting is mandatory, and whoever will not vote will have to pay £500, which is around $28 to $30. This is a sanction that has been rigorously applied in previous elections. Prime Minister of Iraq. Iraq will avoid current military attacks against Turkey, as stated by Haider al-Abadi, Prime Minister of Iraq. There was a phone call yesterday from Turkey's Prime Minister about the sovereignty respect of the border, stating that Turkey will never take any measure against the sovereignty of Iraq. He also stated that there was no agreement with the Iraqi government. There was a military action carried out together. In the press conference, he stated he was quoted incorrectly by the media. He stated ourselves, Turkey would never understand an action with the Iraqi government. Haider al-Abadi stated, as you know, Turkey has problems with the People's Worker Party of Afghanistan, PPK, and the Constitution of Iraq does not allow any worker or authority of Iraq to use any land to attack any neighboring countries. Thus, here I state the commitment of the government of Iraq with the text of the Constitution of our country. We will not allow any attack from the land of Iraq against any neighboring country. Morales comes back from The Hague. Evo Morales, president of Bolivia. He calls me friend. He calls me friend Walter, so I do the same. And he's a very dear friend. He is welcomed by Álvaro García Linera. He is welcomed also by army officers as well as residents. Thank you very much. We've been up since 4, following up all the news, but after listening to this, what are the arguments that you have? What are the new things you have to say? What are your political interests? Or trying to change what I've said? And I would like to repeat once again, all the commitments, all the offers, create legal events, events of law. So what else can I say? What it was said before, that I'm accompanying dialogue or things like this. They have so many documents by lawmakers that state what I have said, that Chile did not comply with their commitment. I see this, and if there's a juridical pressure, we can realize that there is no arguments against us.
Being on YouTube, on the public record in a way, it is categorically untrue that Cambridge Analytica.
We're in London, UK. A Canadian company worked with the software to find Republican voters before the elections of the United States. And the problem now, well, this guy is red, not his face. He's here. Christopher Wiley, spokesperson of Cambridge Analytica, answered the question about Alexander speaking. It is categorically untrue, categorically false that Cambridge Analytica has ever used Facebook data and their acquisition by using the application, as stated by Alexander Court, was the set of fundamental data of the company. This is how the algorithms were developed. At least $1 million were spent in this acquisition program, and it has been provided to the committee, the signature of this, with the signature of Senator Curran, the signature of Senator Nix, of a contract about the use of an app that also collects data from Facebook and Friends. Members of the committee asked, so we're out of the way for a very long time, and now we're reaching the bottom of this matter, right?
not by...
I would sort of call it like a friend.
I believe that Alexander Nick's comments and his comedies were very deceitful. And not only deceitful, but they were dishonest as well, as is stated by Christopher Valli answered this question.
Listed under SCL Canada. So the internal documents of the company refer to this entity, AIQ, as SCL Canada,
Somehow, I will call this a franchise. So in internal documents of the personnel, there's a list of the internal staff that was also sent to the committee, the people from AIQ, which is part of the SCL Canada list. The internal documents of the company refer to the identity AIQ and SCL, but as you already know, I have said this for months. This has been validated. There's a website that has found the code base that consolidated AIQ and demonstrate that it also built the right-bound platform for Cambridge Analytica. This is a tangible task for the public domain. And AIQ indeed built Ripon with their software and used the algorithms for data of Facebook. The history behind this is that there's tangible proofs behind the public domain that data were manipulated in order to provide illegal aid in the terms of an election that traditionally has used different methods. And then, when computers and the internet stopped being a military secret, these geniuses rose, some of them very, very famous. I cannot see in the satellite monitors anything that could alter or improve what I've said or will say. I, of course, speak in the first person as the producer. So, behind all of this, I have my team working with me. So we're going to have a short commercial break and we will come back with events in full development. Stay where you are.
A man who inspired a continent.
Era un hombre demasiado humilde, igual que uno, y andaba junto con uno.
A current idea on every corner of his town.
En Chávez está una lectura originalísima de nuestra realidad.
Hugo Chavez, a man with dreams. On Sunday, only on Telesur.
Community organization and revolutionary verse fused in And Don't Stop. A window to urban culture and political resistance, conducted by the hip-hop band Rebel Diaz. And Don't Stop, Friday, only on Telesur. The ruling world order has always subjugated the masses. But who are the actors behind every move? What are their real interests? We analyze every move on Critical Moves. Weekdays, only on Telesur.
We're back with more events in full development, and as I know you follow us via satellite, we would like to wish the best of times to Eco 11, which are now enjoying time at the port. The training of the Bolivian Army in the Dossier show, talking about Velas Latinoamericanas 2018 of the training ship Alfa Bravo Simón Bolívar Bravo Eco 11, March 27, 2018, operational activities. Training ship Bravo Eco 11, our ambassador without borders, in order to comply with the route plan established in the 30th cruise abroad, Velas Latinoamericanas 2018, is at port in the International Crew Port of Rio de Janeiro. So, they're now located here, where all the big cruise ships for tourism come here. Just like that, because tourism cruises are impressive, but a training ship, a training cruise with a lot of history as this one, whether you know or know about it, has an additional page in its history. This training ship today provided an institutional visit, and as you can see, welcoming our brothers and continuing with the mission of bringing our needs to the rest of the countries and having more than 500 visitors until we got this communique. This is the protocol in the training ship. And take a look at this. The members of the training ship Esmeralda of the Chilean Army, Captain Gregorio Melendez, Bravo de Conce, as well as the Captain Maclabelier, and the officer of the Dominican Republic, and 3 officers as well. Weather conditions, they're at the port, but there's nuvolosity with rains, wind up to 10 knots, good visibility, waves up to 1.2 meters. Today the glossary is very interesting. We're going to use terms in Spanish. We are going to use the word cuaderna. It's one of the transversal pieces that create the skeleton of the ship. It would be like the ribs of our ship. It's difficult to carry out a comparison, but this is the best of cases. Our ribs that come from our torso and give shape to the chest of a person. These are called cuadernas in Spanish. And of course, they're part of the backbone. So, each one of the transversal pieces that create the skeleton of the ship. José Rodriguez, captain and officer in the guard of the Bolivarian Army, Antonio Mejia Ponti, Navy captain and control director, as well as coordination, Marco Frachella Arandia, captain of the ship, chief of the post for the Bolivarian Venezuelan Navy. It's a good port now, and it's going to receive over 600 visitors, even though there's many ships to visit. And this training ship has a very interesting story that has been shown many times. I will tell you a brief anecdote. There was a point. Well, no, I will not talk about this because we don't have enough time. Let's talk about events in full development, and I will tell you this anecdote in a different moment. What is important now about the international area, we know this building, right? It's a very important one. And it represents old symbols, but new politics. Laptop. Russia will not tolerate the behavior against Russia of Great Britain. This is in Uzbekistan, and he states, there's already comments with the Kremlin spokesperson, Mr. Peskov, and foreign affairs, and we'll answer to them because no one has to tolerate a behavior as rude as this, and will not do so. They're asking about 1 or 2 diplomats what there was being sorry in order to abandon this country. This is the result of a colossal pressure, a continuous blackmailing, and now, sadly, this is the main tool for Washington for the international regards. Listen to that, Trump. They want to buy us as if we were blind, just like the declaration of Theresa May, under a situation where this statement is barely an insult to the judicial system of Anglo-Saxony and Britain, even though it's her own system.
The number of countries who have now expelled, because I said...
Primera ministra británica Theresa May.
Prime Minister of Great Britain Theresa May. Just to update, we're in London. The number of countries that have been expelled. Yesterday said 18. The number has rose. Now we are 25 countries that have expelled members. And this afternoon, the NATO General Secretary stated that the Russian mission to NATO has reduced from 30 to 20. So this is another action made. And welcoming international support, as we got yesterday, is at home now.
Of course, as a government, on the issue of financial sanctions, we are...
This is just a matter of opposition of the United Kingdom, and based on national security of the countries in this matter. Ourselves as the government, for sanctions, financial sanctions, we're fully committed with the imposition of sanctions that support and protect our foreign policy, as well as our interest for national security. Financial sanctions, as you know, have been imposed and will continue being there by the EU and the UK due to the actions of Russia and Ukraine. Negotiations break will make measures in order to fulfill them, even trials if needed.
It's a matter of concern, and obviously we know, we've seen that they have indeed attempted to interfere and get involved in certain...
Obviously, the suggestion for Russian interference for democratic elections in every country is a matter of concern. That we've seen that they've tried to interfere and participate in different elections in different countries. I must state that we are yet to see evidence of successful intervention in the processes of the United Kingdom. Should this happen, we would take measures, but until today we've seen no successful interference in the democratic processes of the United Kingdom.
Cambridge Analytica, which obviously raises very deep concerns in terms of what has been suggested has been happening there.
Well, first of all, I believe that without a doubt we need to investigate, and then the parliamentary committee asks questions. I also expect for Facebook Cambridge Analytica to cooperate in order to reach the bottom of this. And Collins says Dr. Zuckerberg should do what he is doing now, and Theresa May said he will decide whether he wants to speak against the committee. But I want Facebook to acknowledge why is this so significant to people, because people are extremely concerned and they want the committee to be capable of reaching the response they need.
So I think this is a whole area of the relationship with tech companies where action is being taken.
So we take this very seriously. We're working with other of the people that have been placed of this. There's been other attempts to interfere with elections elsewhere, so we are completely aware of this. We want to ensure elections to be clean and, of course, free.
Involved will cooperate fully with the Information Commissioner in the investigation that she is conducting into these matters.
And should Mr. Zuckerberg do as you're doing now?
Well, Mr. Zuckerberg will decide for himself whether he wants to come before the committee.
Keeping in mind everything that we've seen, do you think it would be important to ask for the study of this and listen to the allegations of Alexander Kogan, one of the individuals, the academic, that created the original breach of data, to talk about the violation of data between Facebook and Cambridge Analytica, supposedly. By doing so, working for a Russian university back then, do you think it would be important to request for the review of all of this?
So this is something that we're very conscious of, we're not complacent about it, and we do...
Obviously, and as I answered a previous question, what is most important about the case of Cambridge Analytica and Facebook is for the Commissioner of Information to research this appropriately, and for these companies and other organizations, as well as people involved, fully cooperate with the investigation carried out by the Office of the Commissioner for Information. Well, the story behind all this is that the Prime Minister, Theresa May, stated that 25 countries now have expelled Russian diplomats due to their participation, the ones of Moscow, in the poisoning of a former Russian spy and his daughter. Theresa May, when speaking to the people of the Parliament, also listens to the decision of NATO to expel 7 diplomats from the Russian mission in the alliance of the North Atlantic. The government of Europe, as well as other countries, have shown the plans of expelling more than 100 Russian diplomats for the attack against a Russian spy and his daughter. Moscow has completely denied these accusations, and it was also stated that it expected for the executive president of Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, to understand why people are concerned about the leakage of personal information. But this was a decision will haste the Parliament of Great Britain. And Putin states that the first emotion is not to cry, but to cry about the number of children dead in Kemerovo. Putin, who met with other workers when talking to the emergency minister of Russia, Vladimir Pashko, and speaking to the investigation chief, Alexander Radishky, states, the first emotion that I showed when listening to the number of children and babies that is not to cry, but to cry. And then, when you listen what has been said, there are other emotions. Another question. It is impossible to get a certification if you don't pay money. If you pay something, it will happen. This is the disaster. They don't care about security of people. The chief of the Committee for Investigation, Alexander Verstriken, said this was instant combustion due to bad electrical engineering. It was a short circuit, and the version that we don't care for is the use of open fire. Russians set flowers in the Kremlin for the victims of the Kemerovo fire. This shook the whole of the nation. The chief of the investigation committee, Alexander Verstriken, said, we've held 5 people, mainly managers of shopping malls. These are Sobolev, technical director of the owner company of the candy company Kemerovo, that was in charge of fire security, Mr. Prochenko, who's the general director of the company and integration service, who's in charge of the fire alarm system of a shopping mall as this. The fire alarm system was not working on March 19, and no measure was taken in order to solve this issue. Here, something terrible happened. A young kid who realized she was not able to get out. It was a fire. She called her parents and said goodbye to them. Brutal. Members of the security staff, last name Stusted, did not activate the alarm system. Even though it was functional, the signal system did not function properly, but the alarm button was working properly, but he did not press it for reasons unknown. And today we cannot explain this. We cannot provide a reasonable explanation about this. So, the security system, even though a lot of money was invested and highly trained organizations were involved, was abandoned and was not used. We discovered that many of the doors in areas with children mostly were in the 4th floor, with game rooms for children and 3 cinema rooms, specifically filled with youngsters who were blocked. They were blocked. They were trying to discover why doors were blocked. One of the versions was to avoid for the youngsters and those who didn't buy a ticket to avoid from entering the cinema. These are the consequences. Then Alexander Rastrikin said, I would like to point out that a great deal of the staff of the shopping mall simply run, flee, and abandon the children and their parents, as well as the people who were supposed to take care of security for the organization of evacuation. They were the first ones to flee. Almost no one from the staff of the shopping mall are part of the list of victims. We need to learn from this, don't we? We need to learn from this. President Vladimir Putin presided a high-functionary meeting after flying to the scene of this deadly fire in a big shopping mall in Siberia that caused the death of 64 people, amongst them many children. This is pain. It's a lot of pain, as stated by Speranskaya, but the responsibility of adults who we love the most are children. They were the victims. Primero, we can see a lot of people walking to the walls of the Kremlin, women with flowers, the walls of the historic Kremlin. It's beautiful to stand in that beautiful red square. That's the Kremlin Tower. This was brutal. Flowers and candles were given as a sign of respect near the Kremlin, honoring the 64 dead in a fire of a shopping mall that turned out fatal in Siberia. Those in Moscow also set flowers in the Kremlin, remembering the victims. Red flowers, as well as stuffed animals, and posters stating Kemerovo, March 25, 2018. People wearing these white ponchos giving the flowers and putting the statement, we are not drawing conclusions now to find the culprits, but there's 100 investigators and they work very hard. Don't doubt this. A full research, a full investigation, thoroughly. People around Putin and President says, here we are working as a team. It's an investigation of 100 people that will complete the whole chain, starting with the ones who issued the licenses to the responsible people of security, the employees of the security company that were sitting there and did not press the button for the emergency exit on time.
Второе, нужно точно совершенно определить, кто в чем виноват. И когда мы это сделаем,
these things should not be done in front of cameras. This is due to a harsh statement when there's a tragedy beyond. And secondly, we need to identify precisely who is guilty and what of. And when we do so, decisions will be made appropriately. Vladimir Putin swore that the people responsible for the death of 64 people in the shopping mall will harshly be punished, and he visited the survivors. We can see here we can see a group of resident doctors after the visit to the fire scene. Putin promised a complete investigation that will continue the chain of events and will follow it step by step in order to find every culprit and people involved for this criminal negligence, as he states. Catalans protesting against the imprisoning of their leaders. This is outside the train station of Barcelona. Protesters shouting, screaming, police officers prepared for every event, demonstrators behind the police line, protesters pushing some people around. 1,000 protesters reached the Sants station of Barcelona to protest against the imprisonment of separatist Catalan leaders, as well as the arrest of Carles Puigdemont in Germany on Sunday. Puigdemont believes in the German justice system, as stated by his lawyers, but the protests organized in social media by the CDRs of the referendum, as well as neighbor groups that established in Catalonia before the referendum of October 1st to move people to vote and ensure that the referendum will continue facing the repression of Spanish authorities. Police blocked the entrance to the station to avoid protesters to enter and avoid the ways as they did in previous protests. President is facing excellent conditions. His status both physically and morally is very good. This is lawyer Sevillas. I was very happy to see him with all this force, determination, and courage. both physically and emotionally. He seemed very eager. His treatment is excellent from the prison systems, and he thanks all the support given to him. He calls for the union of all sovereignty and insists in the message for determination of courage, and also to continue fighting for his ideas regardless of all the issues he's facing right now. After he spoke in English, the lawyer of Carles Puigdemont, Gonzalo Rodríguez, and he said he has a very good mood. He's very strong, he understands everything, and also understands the situation of the other councilmen in Scotland, Belgium, and Switzerland, as well as the members of the government in prison in Spain.
That are in prison by the Spanish authorities. United Nations has accepted.
Alonso Cuevillas,
during his statement, Gonzalo Valle said, he stated, "We will never surrender," and this is a message for the Chilean people who also have the right to express their will for independence and for the republic.
He's very happy because he was aware.
He's very happy because he was aware yesterday that the Council for Human Rights of the United Nations had accepted his claim for the violation of his rights by the Spanish authorities. The United Nations have accepted to review this case, but this happened after he was arrested, and he was informed by his German lawyer about this.
Jaume Alonso Cuevillas
then stated that the next step will be the statement of the Superior Court. Superior Court will be talking about the Euro order. President, however, knows that this could take long, as well as his situation of being in prison, but he feels perfectly. He's enduring with force, strength, and determination, and as it was stated before, we trust European justice and German justice too. They don't want to appeal to German justice unless things go south.
Es quedan totes las hermanas. Finalmente extradición. Se va a recurrir la extradición, señor.
Have you thought about extradition?
Puigdemont
faced a regional tribunal in the north of Germany that extended his imprisonment until there's a decision made about his extradition. Another court, the one of Switzerland City, will be in charge of deciding whether the request of Spain is granted to extradite him. The next step will be a statement by the Superior Court whether the warrant of Europe will be accepted. The President is fully aware that his imprisonment could take time due to this, but he is very strong, brave, and has a determination of enduring. And as he just told me, we fully believe in the European and German legal systems, as stated by Jaime Alonso Cuevillas. And in the midst of all these events, of all this process, independence activists blocked roads in Catalonia. In La Jonquera, there were reactions due to this. Trucks and vehicles stopped traffic, as we can see, and protesters blocked this very important highway. People with the flag that holds a star from Catalonia, as well as a yellow flag for the leaders of Catalonia that are now in prison. And they state that they're blocking the road with the tires and they will not move. They want to show their solidarity. Protesters used tires as barricades in the highways AP7 and 3400 since 6:30 in the morning, while they were honking for the Chilean Republic, and they summoned a general protest.
Y en el centro de Barcelona,
And in the center of Barcelona, a small group of protesters blocked the Diagonal Avenue, irritating some of the people that were going to their jobs. A person tried to drive through the barricade with his truck. Protesters, after weeks of countless after the arrest of Carles Puigdemont in Germany on Sunday, March 25.
Well,
a lot of things happening. And things now become harder by the minute. Maybe some wine could help us to cool down a bit. But whatever the case may be, this does not end today. This is just the beginning. And this was expected for a long time. A lot of mist in some roads of Europe, but now they continue flowing. I only have to say that whatever you may be in the other side of the monitor, I would like to thank you for allowing us to be there with you. If you want to communicate with us, you know that this program does not belong to Telesur. This program has been made by myself and also by my dear network, Venezolana Televisión, which is Channel 8, the official chain. Before it, there was TVN5 in Charnecas, Romain, where we started with the only satellite for civilian use. And in the afternoon, we had a direct satellite in the room. And now we can say that we are seen beyond this hemisphere, because whenever satulites can reach, internet can. So whatever you may be on the other side of the monitor, thank you very much for allowing us to be with you. From Studio 3 of Venezolana Televisión, pioneering channel of international television via satellite, this was Walter Martinez, producer and host of Dossier. Thank you once again. Director, the floor is all yours.